Good morning. We're going to get underway because we have a lot to do today, and we've got an informational hearing this morning on financing of electrical corporations through securitization bonds. And we know they have to be in the Senate at 9:30. So Rich, can you take the roll quickly?
Chairman, Representative Kelly, present. Vice Chair, Representative Hoheisel, present. Ranking Minority Member, Representative Shue, present. Representative Anderson, present. Representative Baker, present. Representative Bergkamp, present. Representative Day, present. Representative Donahoe. Representative Finney is present. Representative Kessler is present. Representative Lynn is present. Representative Neely is present remote. Representative Poskin is present remote. Representative Samsel. Representative Topliker. Representative Wassinger is present. Representative Weigel is present.
Thank you, Rich. We will call our informational hearing to order, and we have conferees to testify, and we're going to go just, since it's informational, we're not really separating anyone, but we're going to start out with Jason Clint, Director of Government Affairs for Evergy. Welcome.
Is me learn how to turn on a microphone. So what we're going to see here today is a little bit of a unicorn. For those of you, I see several of you who are normally on the Energy Committee. You will see industrials, utilities, some of our regulators and CURB who are in support, and some, I think some renewables, if they're here, that are in support of this bill, which is Senate Bill 245. So appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. Securitization is the key aspect of this bill, and that's why we're here in financial and not over in utilities. But before I walk through the bill, let me just walk through the problem that this intends to solve so that you have some idea of where we are. So we, as utilities, are a capital-intensive business. We invest millions into our generating assets and collect the investment back over a period of decades. We also generate a return of investment of roughly 9% on that asset while it's in service and in use. So even though those assets may have reached the end of their life, and a lot of the assets we're talking about are 60 to 70 years old, but because we've kept investing in them, they may have significant amount of capital left to be depreciated. So because of that, we're incentivized to keep those plants running as long as they can recover that investment and generate a 9% return. There are oftentimes cleaner and or cheaper sources of power, but we're incentivized to keep those generating assets running. That's where securitization comes in. It is simply a financial tool that creates bonding authority to access AAA bonds at a very low interest rate in the 2 to 3% range, depending exactly on the market. But it saves customers money. It's simple math, really. Instead of paying a 9% return on investment, customers would pay the 2 to 3% of an interest rate. 9 minus 2 is 7. And that's to say nothing of the reduction in fuel, O&M, and other costs associated with running the plant. So this is a win-win-win. The utility gets its investment back, customers pay less because of the bonds, and bondholders get a AAA bond that gives them a 2 to 3% return. I want to take just 1 minute, even though this is not the Utilities Committee, I want to take 1 moment to talk about reliability. This is not tomorrow. This is not a pro-retirement bill. This doesn't force us to use it. This doesn't even imply that this is not a mandate. All this is a tool that over the next 5 to 30 years, as these generating assets come up at this part in their life, we have an option, a tool to make it work so it's a win-win-win. So let me just briefly walk you through the parts of the bill, and if I don't know if some of you may be looking at 245 online or have it in person, and it looks big and daunting, and I'm not going to insult your intelligence and tell you that it's a simple bill. It's not, but there's really only 4 parts to it. So the first part is the basic blocking and tackling of securitization to ensure that the fundamentals are there that we're able to get a AAA bond. It is frankly language that only a bond trader could love. And so if you fell asleep last night reading it, I don't blame you. But it has several things in it that I might point out that are important. First of all, it's voluntary. So we cannot be forced to do this. Why is that important? There are groups who would like to see us retire all of our coal plants by 2030. We believe we would have a major reliability challenge if we tried to do that. So this gives us the option to be able to come and do this. The KCC must approve. We have to go to the KCC and ask them for the ability to securitize this plant. They have to agree with us that there is a net present value of benefits for customers. The charge would go on a customer's bill. It is non-bypassable and non-revocable. What do I mean by that? That's how you get a AAA bond rating. You have to have something that, so another commission or a new government affairs director or something like that can't come in and say, well, we're not gonna do that. That's silly, we're not gonna, it has to be non-revocable. As you all know in the financial industry, that's how you get a AAA bond. The second part is just simply makes clear that it is our money and that we're able to reinvest that investment that we get back into other projects in the grid. The third portion is predetermination for the retirement of coal-fired generation assets. Now, you may say, what is predetermination? And it's a really fancy legal term that just says that we go ahead and decide ahead of time what's in the best interest. You already have that in Kansas when it comes to putting assets into rates. All this does is predetermination for taking them out of. As you can imagine, if we were to decide to shut a generating asset or close down a facility, it's very hard if later on someone tells us, no, you shouldn't have done that. It's very hard to bring it back up when it's, at level. So there's a case that would go in front of the KCC. They would look at it. All the stakeholders, environmental, industrials, regulators would all have their say and their look to determine whether or not this makes sense for Kansans. And the fourth and final portion is simply changes to the Uniform Commercial Code. That introduces no new language in the bill. It is simply the belt and suspenders to make what we have done on previously in the bill to work. So this is a tool that 25 other states have. It is a tool that saves customers money, and it's not a policy bill. It's just a tool in the toolbox. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I will either stand for questions now or at the appropriate time, whichever you would prefer.
Thank you, Jason. I think we'll go ahead. We just have 3 oral conferees, so I think we'll let you all present, and then we can hit all the questions at once. Next one that I have listed is Paul Snyder, Snyder Public Affairs, on behalf of the Kansans for Lower Electric Rates and the Kansas Industrial Consumer Group. Paul, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. My name is Paul Snyder, representing the Kansas Industrial Consumers Group and also Kansans for Lower Electric Rates. I know several of you from the Utilities Committee, and you've heard me speak probably more than once about our concern about high electric rates and how we transition to more competitive rates over time. We think that this bill, securitization, is a tool to help in small part get us there. It doesn't change the world from a rate perspective by any means, but is cost beneficial to customers. I included some written testimony that I had to turn in yesterday by noon, so that hedged my comments a little bit, but I am proud to report that as of last night, we have reached an agreement that Jason indicated with Evergy and the KCC and CURB that does provide some clear protections for consumers, so we are comfortable with this bill moving forward. I think I put in my testimony and would commit to that we are cautiously and conservatively supportive, but do think that this can benefit consumers moving forward. We were probably first to the party as far as a major entity supporting securitization bills. We've supported in the last 2 years and supported a different one that's in Ways and Means. And at first we did have some concerns with this bill, but believe it's been tightened up appropriately and appreciate the time and happy to answer any questions for you this morning.
Thank you, Paul, and we will have questions after we hear from Patrick Vogelsberg, Government Affairs Manager, Kansas Gas Service. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to be here. So Senate Bill 245, I'm with Kansas Gas Service, represent our company, and the underlying bill, I think right off the bat, it's important to distinguish that the underlying bill is how it's been described to you so far today. We are looking at an amendment that we're going to be testifying on in Senate Financial Institutions here shortly that would add extraordinary gas costs related to the extreme weather event that we experienced in February. And so this committee, I believe, is uniquely aware of the legislation that you passed in Senate Bill 88 a couple weeks ago, dealing with the municipal gas side. I think it was Speaker Pro Tem Finch indicated that the investor-owned utilities were exploring another option that would pertain to us, and securitization is the tool in which we're looking at utilizing. So with that, I've provided my written testimony that provides some background on securitization as a tool. I won't rehash the severity of that winter storm. It was significant from an operational standpoint, and I am very pleased and proud to report that we did not have any significant operational issues throughout that event, due in no small part to our employees working around the clock and conservation efforts on behalf of our customers. So while the storm is over, the immediate threat is over, we are working with the KCC to mitigate the cost impact of what we saw as the significant increases in natural gas prices. So for us, just to provide you a little bit of background, for our Kansas Gas Service customer, how their gas bills will be reflected. So a sales customer for us, what we have incurred extraordinary cost to purchase gas. What the KCC has allowed us to do is defer those costs into a regulatory asset, pretty much set those aside for now. And so Kansas Gas Service customers, and likely the other IOU gas company customers would be similarly situated, they will not experience on their current and upcoming bills that spike in gas price. So our cost of gas that's on a Kansas Gas Service customer bill is going to stay relatively flat. They may see an uptick due to increased usage, but the cost of gas will remain flat. So once we've stabilized that bill impact for now we have this extraordinary cost sitting over to the side and how best to pay for that. What's different with the IOUs, or for instance, Kansas Gas and One Gas, is we went out onto the market, the private market, and secured financing to cover those costs. And we have now deferred those costs from customers. So securitization, what it allows for us to do is pursue even further least cost alternative to financing these costs over the term of the obligation. In my testimony that I've provided on page 2, I've given you some examples. So our cost, Kansas Gas Service cost for an extraordinary gas is roughly about $400 million. We've estimated for these hypotheticals, $420 million for just Kansas Gas Service. And that's the extraordinary cost just during that time period of the weather event. What we have done is we've ran some hypotheticals to show you what the cost savings would be. We plan to file, we will do a filing with the KCC of a plan on how best to recover these over a reasonable and appropriate amount of time, and how best to fairly and equitably collect those costs from customers. So the top hypothetical on page 2, you'll see, is that a 3-year, what we call traditional payback, that includes what our carrying charges are as a public utility. There's nothing set in stone on that, but from a hypothetical standpoint, that is likely a 2 to 3 year payback is what we're likely looking at under the current circumstances. You can see a total dollar amount, but then what that would be broken out as a per MCF addition over 3 years, what that looks like annualized for the average customer, and then what the total over the course of the 3-year payback, what that would look like. Then I've provided a hypothetical 5-year payback. That likely wouldn't be the case. I think with the plan that we're looking at is probably something in the 2 to 3 year, but we provide that to show you what the hypothetical 5-year securitization payback would be. And so what you can see is under securitization, that wins out, under these hypotheticals, that wins out on a total revenue requirement over the total obligation. It wins out over a per MCF basis, wins out on total average annual impact to customers, and the total impact over the course. So even though it's a longer period, it still beats out the 3-year and the 5-year payback total. We estimate that just with securitization, pursuing this tool for extraordinary costs, at the low end, we're probably looking at saving Kansas Gas Service customers $50 million on these extraordinary costs. And that could range up to $90 million, but it's probably around $50 million. In the back of my testimony, I provided an attachment on the components of securitization. I believe that's already kind of been went over, the benefits of securitization. But really, to distinguish ourselves from the municipal systems, is we're not needing a loan from the state and accessing loan to state. We've already accessed financing in the private markets. What we're asking for authorization to do through securitization is to pursue least cost financing, again, in the private markets through private bond facilities. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Patrick. And I'll point out before we go to our questions that we have one written conferee, and that's Justin Grady, Chief of Revenue Requirements, Cost of Service, and Finance Utilities Division of the Kansas Corporation Commission. He provided written testimony, so please look through that. But we've now got, for their benefit, about 10 minutes or so for questions, and we'll have it to all three. And first one, I see Representative Shue has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is more of a comment, I guess, than a question. I just wanted to thank everybody for coming together on this. This touches several issues that are important to me and my constituents, lower electric rates amongst them. I'll let you guys to continue hashing out the kind of the ratepayer language on it, but that would be my main concern about the underlying language. But if an agreement is made that kind of gives us more assurance that the ratepayers will see lower rates, it's win-win-win-win all around for me. So just wanted to thank all of you for your work. Thank you.
Why?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for all your testimony. I don't know if this will be for Patrick. I'm sure there must have been precedents set prior years where we've had this kind of a storm that, really opened up the floodgates as far as heating and what kind of procedures or what policies did the industry take at that time compared to what you're proposing now?
So I want to be specific to just Kansas, all right, and not bring in what Texas has gone through and all that. So as far as we've experienced cold weather, and I think the fact that we've experienced that and made investments on an operational standpoint showed that our system held up through this storm, even though it was the temperature was cold and cold for a long time. All right, so operationally, I think our system has held up, and that's been due to significant investments in recent years. On the cost side, on the natural gas spot price, looking back, you go back to, I believe, 2014, in February of 2014, when we saw the spot price of natural gas go over $30. And that was, it went over $30, and I believe it was for about 1 day. And then it went back down. And, you know, scrolling back through the historical time period, I don't think we've ever seen the markets behave in this way. And what's different is we saw not only prices go to $40 and then, you know, on up to over $300, and then for a 1 day even go up over $600 an MCF. We've never seen that before. And I believe the KCC they've opened up company-specific dockets to take a look and investigate this, and I think there will be other state and federal authorities that look at what happened with that price. And so, somewhat unforeseeable, that reaction, but I could tell you that one of the things that benefited our customers is the way that we do purchase gas. Not all of the gas that we purchased was exposed to the spot market. Actually, a smaller portion was. Most of our gas that we purchase is purchased through long-term contracts, short-term contracts, and then we have storage gas. And we utilized all of those through that time period. But I think that no matter who you were, if you even had a small portion of your overall supply portfolio exposed to the spot market, you were going to see significant increases from that. So I think there's going to be a lot to be learned. I don't know if that necessarily answers your question as far as what we've learned from historical perspective, but I think there is going to be lessons learned here as far as, you know, what do we do in this situation when you see such a dramatic spike in price? Before we get to that, I think various, you know, as I mentioned, federal and state authorities are going to be investigating what exactly happened in the market at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Hoheisel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is for Patrick. Looking at SB 245, and if I remember correctly, you guys will need to amend this language into 245.
Yeah.
Do you have that language already drawn up?
So it's kind of come together here recently, I think even as last night. For the most part, it's going to be in a substitute bill. We're going to have that hearing here shortly up in the Senate, and I think that will be made available. But pretty much once the benefit for us is that so much ground has already been plowed on securitization with this bill through the efforts of other proponents and stakeholders. And really, once you set up that framework for getting AAA rated bonds, then what you securitize is maybe a little bit simpler of approach. So we need to define what extraordinary costs are, how we go about making it unique to the gas side.
And that was my follow-up question on extraordinary cost. If you have any of that amendment language, could you just shoot me an email?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Patrick, you might send it to our committee assistant, Rich Mergen, and he can get it out to everyone. Okay, any other questions? I've got one for Jason.
Just don't want to ask it of him.
Yeah.
I thought he did really well.
He was, well, you did a really good job, too, of directing it. My question was, when you look at the extraordinary cost, would the Evergy and other electric utilities look at this same type of thing?
We could. I will tell you with respect to Winter Storm Uri, I still don't know exactly where that name came from, but with respect to Winter Storm Uri, we don't have that same problem on the Kansas side. We do on the Missouri side, but part of our problem with natural gas is it was simply unavailable. We couldn't get some of natural gas during Winter Storm Uri, which meant we had to rely on other generation assets. So we would be able to look at it now, both now and in the future. If that, I don't want to say opportunity because it's not really an opportunity, but if that were to present itself, but we don't, at the moment, we don't believe we need it for this event.
Okay. So the amendment, though, would make that available to you if you needed it.
That's right. It's not specific to one event and one time. It's an extraordinary cost. many states have storm recovery as a part of securitization that they put in there, and I think that's along the lines of how the amendment is drawn up.
Okay, thank you. How about any other questions in our last minute here? Don't see anything. Well, thank you very much for the time, and hopefully if you run real fast, you can get up to the Senate by 9:30. Okay, so our next item here is going to be a hearing on the new Ros Bill, but before we do that, I didn't say it to begin with just because of the interest of time, but happy St. Patrick's Day, and I would like to let everyone know there is a tie for the best green here today between Representative Toplicker and Gary, our AV guy. Both of you are green all the way. Representative Toplicker's tie is a little gray. Oh, look at that. I thought it was black when I was first looking at it, but a three-way tie then. So anyway, on a St. Patrick's Day where we may all float down a river of green beer, I'd like to open the hearing on House Bill 2431, which is expanding the Rural Opportunity Zone program, and to begin with, would like to I want to point out too that a fiscal note on this bill arrived just minutes before the hearing, and Rich has sent it out in an email to everyone, so it should be fairly high up on your list, that the email with the fiscal note on this particular bill. But want to start out with the briefing on the bill. And Charles Reamer, Assistant Reviser, is going to provide us with this. He's the reviser that has been working on this bill and was able to work through all the, I guess, the various aspects of it and get it to us so we could have a hearing before we ended this part of our session. So Charles, welcome to the committee, and if you could give us a kind of a brief on House Bill 2431.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 2431 makes a number of changes to the Department of Commerce's Rural Opportunity Zone program, including changing the definition of a rural opportunity zone from a list of counties, as in current law, to just eligibility based on population. The bill expands the eligibility for program participants for certain elements of the program to include individuals who have maintained their domicile in a county. It adds a down payment assistant benefit option. It also provides for a new second program track of a new rural community building program. The bill also extends the program sunset to 2026. So Section 1 of the bill is the section that discusses the new rural community building program option. And it's an option for a county. A county can either choose to participate in this new program or participate in the program under current law, but that program has also been expanded, as we will see in a moment. So Section 1 establishes a new second track. A county that is a rural opportunity zone may participate in either the new program or the current program. And a county may only participate in either the rural community building program or the expanded current ROZ program. And then there's a 5-year commitment by the county. The ROZ program participants who are eligible may also receive the current ROZ program tax credit, which is provided at KSA 7932-267. Counties that elect to participate in this new rural community building program must do so by a resolution committing to the program for 5 years. The program involves goals for each of those 5 years, and they're to be accomplished with the assistance of the Secretary of Commerce. In the first year, the county is to produce an assessment of its marketing capacity and also develop a website that is functional as a marketing tool. In the second year, the county selects, designs, and implements small-scale community improvement projects that are designed to attract new residents and also retain existing residents, including elderly residents. Some examples of such projects would be Main Street improvements, parks, mini parks, playgrounds, community gathering places such as entertainment venues or community centers. The state, subject to appropriations, provides matching funds to be matched equally by the county. The county share may be provided by any political subdivision within the county, by any municipality within the county, or by any organization, business, or individual. The plans for the projects are to be published on the county's website. The third year of the program involves the county producing a housing assessment that includes an evaluation of existing housing and also demand for new or improved housing. The assessment is to include an evaluation of the possibility of creating a local equity pool for housing construction, renovation. It includes conducting a survey as part of making that assessment. And this assessment is also to be published on the county's website. In the fourth year, the county is to identify funding sources, match developers with county communities, and also implement the housing plan that addresses the needs that were identified by the housing assessment. County is to provide assistance by the Secretary and the Kansas Housing Resources Corporation. In this fourth year, the county is to organize housing development teams of local tradespeople, volunteers, local organizations to accomplish the plan. The county also is to develop equity pools for funding. In the fifth year of the program, basically that involves completing the housing plan, and the county has until the end of the fifth year to complete that housing plan. Section 2 are the definitions for the Rural Opportunity Zone program, and there have been some changes to those definitions. First of all, the definition for an institution of higher education is expanded to include technical colleges, community colleges, two-year associate degree or career technical programs offered by private colleges, Washburn Institute of Technology. The current definition is also broad, so it adds to that current definition that includes public or private nonprofit education institutions. So I note that this corresponds with an expansion of the educational loan repayment assistance under the bill. It's expanded to cover loans for completing a career and technical education program certificate, in addition to an associate, bachelor, or postgraduate degree program, as in the current law. Another important change in the definition section is the definition for rural opportunity zone has changed. Instead of that list of counties, the definition now under the bill would be a population of less than 35,000 persons. Section 3 deals with the expansion of the current ROZ program and also the expansion of program participant eligibility. So the bill adds a new benefit option for down payment assistance for the purchase of a first home as an alternative to assistance with educational loan repayment. That of course is a current ROZ benefit under current law. The bill also expands eligibility for benefits for program participants to include individuals who have maintained their domicile in the county. Under current law, you have to establish domicile in the county after the county decides to participate in the ROZ program. So this is intended to benefit individuals who may have maintained their domicile in the county while they were away at school, or that would be an example of the kind of individual that this change is intended to benefit. Counties may participate in one or both benefit options for a participant, but an individual program participant may only receive benefits from one option. So counties can do either or both. The current loan repayment program or the down payment assistance program, which we'll discuss in just a bit. But participants who receive benefits can only elect to receive one of those benefits. Current law provides for student loan repayment assistance for qualifying participants. That's assistance that's provided in equal share by the state and county over a 5-year period, up to a maximum total amount of $15,000. This bill permits a county share of the benefit to be provided by the employer of the qualified participant, any municipality or political subdivision within the county, or any other organization, business, or individual, including the qualified participant. As I noted previously, as an alternative to assistance with educational loan repayment, a program participant who is a first-time home buyer may now, under this bill, elect to receive down payment assistance for the purchase of a residence within the county. The state will pay up to 1.5% of the down payment if matched by a sponsor, so the total benefit to a participating individual would be up to 3% of the down payment. This sponsor may be the county, the program participant's employer, any municipality or political subdivision within the county, or any other organization, business, or individual, including the qualified individual. The county must agree to commit at least $10,000 towards matching funds. And the failure of the county to certify that it is meeting its financial obligations under the program will result in the loss of active status as a rural opportunity zone, and no new program participants may be accepted for benefits until status is restored by the Secretary of Commerce. The eligibility requirements for program participants are discussed in Section 3 of the bill. Under current law, an individual must be a resident individual who establishes domicile in the county after the date county commenced participation in the program. The bill provides, as I discussed, alternative eligibility for program participants on and after June 1st, 2021, when the resident individual has maintained their permanent residence or domicile in, either continues to reside in, or has returned to the county. Just a note, in addition to either the loan repayment assistance or the down payment assistance, a resident individual, if eligible, may receive the income tax credit pursuant to 7932-267. The bill also extends the ROZ program to July 1st, 2026. With respect to that tax credit, the intent of the bill was to extend the tax credit until for participants who apply until January 1st, 2026. It looks like there will need to be a technical amendment. There was a date missed. If you look at Section 4, page 6 of the bill, line 21, we need to change that January 1st, 22 date to January 1st, 2027 to extend the income tax credit. One of the dates was changed in the income tax credit provision, and that date was missed, so that needs to be changed to January 1st, 2027. Eligibility for the tax credit for participants in the program is unchanged from current law. It requires establishment of domicile in a rural opportunity zone after the individual is domiciled outside the state for 5 or more years, immediately prior to establishing domicile in the rural opportunity zone, among other requirements. So those eligibility requirements remain as they are under current law. If enacted, this bill would become effective July 1st, 2021. And that is what the bill does. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Charles. Are there any questions? Charles, I have one. You answered the first one because I noticed that date last night. I hadn't noticed it before, so you answered that one on the 2022 needing to be changed. On the county contribution of $10,000, is that a one-time, or is that an annual contribution of $10,000?
Just let me take a moment to take a look at that.
I couldn't see that it called for an annual, but I wasn't sure. You can let us know on that one, Charles. Charles, I think you were off mute, but you went back to mute. You went back to mute again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, my apologies, Chairman. So the way the bill is currently written, I believe that would just be a one-time commitment. It doesn't appear to be an annual requirement. I don't believe.
Okay. And one last question. Is the income tax credit amount the same in this bill that it was in the current Ros Bill that sunsets this year?
Yes, Chairman, the income tax provisions have not been changed, other than, they are extended.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions, Representative Toplicker?
Yes, how does a person find out about this program? How does an individual who wants to participate in either the loan repayment or the home buyer part of it, how would they find out about it?
Representative Toplicker, I might answer that one for you just for the fact that I think some of our follow-up proponents would be probably better to address that too, because they do it different ways in different counties. So we'll do that. Any other questions for our revisor? Don't see any. Thank you, Charles. How about as far as research, does Melissa, Heather, or Andrew have any comments?
Mr. Chairman, this is Melissa, and I would just note that the fiscal note is available and there is comment from the Department of Revenue. They do estimate, given that population that Mr. Reimer referred to, the change in the definition, that would increase from the current 77 counties to 93 counties. And so there's a fiscal effect associated with adding those counties to the rural opportunity zones. The Department of Commerce also has some cost relevant to what they would need to administer the program and program staff they would need to add. And then also some additional funding regarding the housing down payment assistance, as well as the Board of Regents has commented regarding the addition of community and technical college students. While there will be no direct fiscal effect on higher education institutions, they just wanted to make that comment. And the Association of Counties has stated that there could be some fiscal effect if a county elects to participate in the Rural Community Building Program.
Thank you, Melissa. Any questions for Melissa? Representative Wassinger?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question on the fiscal note, if anyone can answer this, is who's taking care of the program now? Why would we have to have 2.5 more full-time employees, state employees, when the ROS program is already being done? So why suddenly would we need so many more employees? Thank you.
And we'll probably have Mr. Sofer that's going to testify from the Department of Commerce. That would be a good one to refer that question to. He may already cover that. Any other questions? If not, thanks, Melissa. And this will then officially open the hearing on House Bill 2431. And we'd like to begin with our proponents, and mainly that's what we have today, is proponents for this bill. And the first one I have listed is David Soper, Legislative and Policy Director for the Kansas Department of Commerce. And David, you have some green on too, so, and a green cup, so.
I do. Notre Dame fan, so I got my Notre Dame cup here, and the green tie. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Chairman, Vice Chairman, members of the committee. David Sofer, Legislative Policy Director, Department of Commerce. I apologize. I normally print out my testimony. I'm going to read it off my phone today. I just didn't have the opportunity. It was a kind of crazy storm driving in today. So we are here to speak in support of 2431. Just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of background. So I did also in my testimony include 2 reports that you should have received. So you received, for those of you that were here last year, maybe it might look familiar, there was a report with kind of our deep breakdown into Ros and kind of, you know, what we were able to find. And so some of the things that we did find in our report last year is we found over 30 counties do not commit any resources. And over 80% of the student loan recipients in 2019 would have moved to their county regardless. So from our end of things, and there are other findings as well, but those were kind of the 2 main highlights. And so some of the things that we kind of looked at was that mainly what we have is an inefficient incentive. However, that does not mean that we have failed, you know, program has failed. I think there are ways to fix it. And so 2431 is really the kind of you know, the thought process behind fixing it. Just so you know, the way we came about this bill is we put together a working group last year. Originally, it was supposed to start right at kind of towards the tail end of the session. COVID kind of affected that a little bit, so we got a little bit of a late start on that one. But we had legislators, we had county commissioners, and we also had economic development professionals, all part of that. And so what we wanted to be able to do is not necessarily dictate what Ros should be, but rather get community and stakeholder input and figure out how do we make this program the best possible program we can so it can truly impact all of our rural communities and bring about the best possible results. So I think that the first thing we wanted to be able to make sure we did, and this was a conversation in the group, but I know also the secretary mentioned it last year, those that like Ros as is should be able to keep Ros. We're not looking necessarily to change things up for those counties that do love it as is. But there's clearly quite a few counties that commit no resources because they don't necessarily see as much value in the program. And so we wanted to be able to find kind of that middle ground where we could get more community buy-in into the program and address some of the items that they would like to see. So with that, we did have some changes that we are proposing. Among them is home buyer down payment assistance. So this would be 1.5% on the state side, 1.5% on the sponsor side, similar to kind of how the student loan repayment works. The reason why we chose home ownership as opposed to student loan, although we're keeping the student loan, is a lot of counties felt that the reason why they don't want to invest these funds is that they think that there are folks that do take part in the student loan repayment and then they just leave once their student loans are paid off. Whereas home ownership really ties in, you know, if you're investing in buying a home, you most likely see that community as your place long term. You want to build there, you want to grow there. And so they would rather see, if they're going to commit resources, committing it towards something that's much more long term than student loan repayment. So that's why we put in the home down payment assistance. Regarding that $10,000 sponsorship, so I mean, I did make a note. There are a couple of technical changes we have to change. That $10,000 sponsorship would be each year. The reason why is that, again, we have 30 counties that are not committing any funds into the program itself, but they are receiving state funding. The challenge we're going to have is if we are looking to expand the program, and we are, as mentioned, there would be a 35,000 population, because we do want to make sure we address all of our rural counties. We have to be able to make sure that those that commit resources to the program are prioritized. Otherwise, we are simply going to run out of resources very quick for those counties that want to participate in this program. At the end of the day, if you're starting to add counties that have populations of 35,000, there's going to be a lot more participants. There's just a limitation on the amount of funding we have for this program currently. So we want to be able to make sure we prioritize those that are marketing the program appropriately, are kind of working at it, and very much see the value in the program. Among some of the other things we've included in this, we would allow student loan repayment assistance for vocational and other technical certificates. Reason being is that, let's say, for example, a welder may not necessarily go to a four-year school. He may, he or she may have had various costs associated with certificates. I could argue with you, I know many rural communities would, that a welder would be incredibly valuable for that community. So we don't necessarily want to tie it simply just to four-year schools or associate degrees. There are a lot of technical certificates and positions that come with that are very valuable to our rural communities, and so we want them to be able to utilize that program currently. We also changed the sponsorship. So currently, it's only a county or an employer could be a sponsor. In this case, we also changed it to foundation and others that could be sponsors, simply because we don't want to limit. If somebody's willing to sponsor an individual, that, in our opinion, is good enough for us. We don't necessarily want to limit that sponsorship ability. And then one of the last pieces, at least on this kind of tract of Ros, is supporting young graduates who want to return home. We heard this from the working group so much, is that part of the challenge with rural communities is also making sure that we keep the kids that grew up in rural Kansas here in Kansas. And so, when you go to a four-year school or wherever you go, and we want you to be able to come back, build, and grow here. So they wanted to be able to use this a little bit more as a retention tool. And so we wanted to be able to give them that opportunity as well. So that kind of changes a lot of what the current tract of Ros is. But we'd also want to develop another area. So there are some counties that did give us feedback that said we just don't see the value in this type of program. But we would see the value if we could use resources matched by the state towards home building and home rehabilitation. As we all know, there is a tremendous shortage in housing all across our state, but especially in our rural communities, it is just very costly to build housing. So we created a 5-year plan. There would be a 5-year program. So you have to pick which program you want to be in. You could either be in the housing building only program or the other side of Ros. But if you wanted to be in this program, it's a 5-year commitment. So year one, we focus on community image, improving your marketing, your ability to kind of sell your city, sell your community, sell your county. Year two would kind of be focused on improving main streets and local assets, so such as, whether it be parks, playground equipment, again, local main streets, developing of attractive community gathering places, that type of deal. And then years 3 through 5 would really be focused on how do we build and rehabilitate housing to get you the stock needed as far as units are concerned in order for you to be able to recruit and keep your folks here in your community. We believe this new approach could create a far more effective tool for our rural communities. Again, this comes with stakeholder buy-in. That's the reason why this bill is in front of you today. I wish it would have come a little bit sooner. I know it's been, the revisor's office has just been bombarded this year, so it's been tough, but we did try to get this thing out as quickly as possible because Ros is up this year. If we can't get this bill done, we certainly would support an extension of current Ros, but we would want to be able to see this thing taken up next year because we do think it's important that we address the inefficiencies in the current program itself. And then I'll respond to a couple of questions before I wrap up. So I know Representative Topliker, your question with how we promote it. So it's twofold. What the state does is we promote it on our website. We do some advertising as well on this. And then we do also anticipate that counties should be able to promote it as well to their residents as they move in because there's only a limitation on how much we can do. I mean, we have some like highway signage and some other stuff, but we do also want our counties and local communities to help out with some of that advertising and some of that push as well because it is benefiting their community. So there is a partnership in that. And then Representative Wassinger, your question on the 2.5 positions. So currently the way it works, there's only this student loan portion and the income tax credit we don't at all administer. But because we're adding so many new components to ROS and you're going to increase the amount of counties, we are already strapped from a staff point as is. We only have one staff member that deals with all of ROS, but when you start adding community home building and trying to increase the amount of applications, that's why we are asking for an increase of staff at 2.5 positions. We just feel that the workload is probably going to triple because of all these new components to the program that weren't there initially. And especially with the rollout, there is going to be some challenges on the staff end to be able to pull this thing off. So that's why there's a request for 2.5 positions. So with that, obviously, if I haven't answered, feel free to ask me in greater detail, but I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, David, I think since we only have proponents, that we will go ahead and hear the other three, and then we'll open up to questions for everyone because they can cover from the state side to the community side down to those that actually promote it. So we'll do that if that works for you. Next presenter is Wendy Stark, Research Associate for the League of Kansas Municipalities. Welcome, Wendy.
Good morning and thank you. Yes, slide. Oh, there we go. I didn't have it down low enough. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members, for allowing the League of Kansas Municipalities to speak on behalf of House Bill 2431. As we presented testimony earlier this year, the ROS program has benefited many cities across the state. One of those things is retention and recruitment, that it has helped with that. So we just feel that House Bill 2431 will help enhance recruitment and retention within cities. And to answer one of the questions, one of the cities, actually the Economic Development Group, uses that to recruit employees into the city. So when they are hiring new employees, they use that income tax waiver as a recruitment tool to bring individuals into the community. We all know that communities across Kansas are facing many challenges, and as population trends indicate, our rural areas are where we're losing the population. So we, again, feel that this is a very important tool to enhance the ROS program. It's to expand the ROS program, but also to enhance other programs like Main Street programs. And this can even be Enhance Recovery Act, which will cover broadband and some other community centers, et cetera. And so we just really think it's important to include these community improvement projects, the parks, the Main Street beautification, the community centers, and then the construction for housing units. And again, it's benefited many communities throughout the state. We appreciate all of the benefits and all the work of ROS. We look forward to helping promote and expand
I was asked to unmute, but there's no video or sound on my end, so I'm not sure if you can hear me or not.
You can hear, as text me back and let me know. Melissa, are we back sound and video to you? Yes. Okay. Tricia can hear us now. And so, Tricia, are you prepared to go ahead?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm not sure why there was a glitch just now. Thank you for, I was texting you in case you couldn't hear me. My name is Tricia Purdon. I'm the Executive Director of Montgomery County Action Council. We're the economic development group for Montgomery County. I appreciate the opportunity to come and provide information and testimony on House Bill 2431. Montgomery County is one of the larger of the rural counties, but it definitely falls within the 35,000 population. And we are a heavy manufacturing county. And as the lady from the League of Municipalities mentioned, we are one of those counties that utilizes the current ROS program to recruit new employees for manufacturers. We have several large manufacturers that utilize this program, such as Textron Aviation, John Deere, CVR Energy, and several other smaller family-run manufacturing companies here in the county. It is a key component of our recruitment process. In fact, our local hospital told me that's their #1 tool that they use to recruit healthcare workers to the hospital here. And as a border community, this has become more and more important every year. We are also very excited about the expansion of the program to allow for down payment assistance and housing programs. Montgomery County is one of those counties also that has struggled with recruiting new developers and new housing opportunities for our residents. And as a border community, we're frequently hear that employees are living in Bartlesville or South Coffeyville or Nowata rather than living in Montgomery County. The reason why this is important, especially to the state of Kansas, is the fact that when we recruit a new employee, a new employer to our county, we provide incentives and tax abatements to those businesses, assuming that we will get a return on investment. And truly, the main way we get that return on investment in the local community is if the employees themselves live in Kansas. They buy their groceries in Kansas, they fill up their cars in Kansas, and they pay their taxes in Kansas. So we are losing dollars every day in new recruitment of businesses if we aren't keeping those residents in Kansas. And so we are not getting the return on investment unless we get them to live here. So we're excited about the dual purpose of this program between student loan forgiveness and the tax credits, and then housing down payment assistance for those employees. We're encouraging them to live in the county, and it gives that HR director an opportunity to bring that up in those conversations, whereas before Ros, that wasn't something they could easily do. I would also like to point out one of the exciting components, and as a member of the task force that worked over the past several months to put this together, this was one of our key issues that our county commissioners brought to me. We have 2 community colleges here in Montgomery County and countless community colleges here in Kansas, which has amazing training programs, such as HVAC, plumbing, electricians. Those positions are in extreme need in our communities. And currently, where there's no incentives for those students once they receive their certifications at Coffeyville Community College to stay in our county. This would give us an opportunity to have those conversations with those students and hopefully get those students to stay in our rural community that they lived in for 2 years to complete that certification process. We are excited about the opportunity for the development of the marketing program. And I think as one of the representatives had asked about marketing, to me, that was one of the biggest challenges with the current program is the fact that in our case in Montgomery County, it was basically myself promoting the Rural Opportunity Zone program and trying to get information out to all of our HR directors. And this was constantly a challenge. So we're excited about the add additional commerce staff. We hope that provides us some marketing materials that we can regularly get out to our HR directors and to recruitment opportunities when we're trying to recruit a new business. So we're excited about the expansion of this program. We think that you'll actually get a better bang for your buck, to say, for Ros with this expansion. And the last bit I will say, an interesting bit of information came out yesterday. We received our census report from the United States Census, and we lost a significant number of folks from Montgomery County this year in 2020. But one of the interesting pieces they told us is that although we lost population using the American Community Survey in 2019, we lost population, but we also gained a significant number of people who were moving here from out of state. So although the Ros program on paper looks like it might have failed, to me, it looks like we were starting to turn the tide with the previous Ros program with a large number of people who are moving to Montgomery County from out of state, according to that new census survey. So I think we're starting to turn the tide and we're getting that information going, and we're excited to see what this new program can do.
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tricia. And our last in-person proponent is Kelly Folletti. Hope I got that close, Kelly. Director of Cali County Economic Development Partnership. Welcome.
Hi, actually it's Carrie, but that is fine. Every day I get called Kelly, so not a problem at all, sir. Yeah, I'm Carrie Folletti, Director of Cali County Economic Development. I've been the director for over 11 years now, and we're really excited to present a proponent for this program for the Ros expansion. Cali County would be one of the counties that are added. So I felt it would be important to kind of tell our story of why we would really appreciate consideration for the changes that are being proposed in this program. Looking at our population information, we have lost about 500 in our population estimates in the last 2 years and over 900 in the last 5 years. So our population trend that we've lost basically 4%, is just something that we're really trying to work hard to get turned around. Our businesses are struggling to fill jobs, and so we've been working really hard together to find what we can do, and this could be an excellent tool to use as part of our incentive for folks to locate here. In the past, I have had people ask that are locating or taking positions if we are a Ros, and when I have to tell them we're not a Ros, they don't end up living in Cali County. So, and I echo so much of what Trish has just presented, just the values for the program. We've got multiple employers that are growing right now. So we've got, and I'll address a little more here in a moment, but our Cali Works program, where we list jobs, we consistently have over 100 jobs listed. And if we would have the opportunity to turn our declining population trend around, that I think we would see a lot of these positions filled and some more growth with our companies, which would be great. The addition of the expansion for the student debt assistance is significant. We do have, as the previous presentation, using a welder as an example, we have an extreme welder shortage, but the training for this program, for the training that we are needing, there is some education. So if we would be able to assist some of our businesses in something like that, because we are a very heavily manufacturing, so we have a lot of training that is certificate based. And we also have our local community college that we work with quite extensively for filling these positions that do not require 4-year degrees. So that is definitely a positive that we would see as well. And housing for those that are not looking for the student loan, but to help folks locate and to know that they're going to be staying in Cali County by purchasing a home definitely shows that long-term benefit that can be experienced. And then that just means we get them here, we get more students in our schools, and then we just really see that full circle of impact. And we do have a strong partnership with our local businesses. And you'll see with the letters as well that I provided that we do have support of our county commission, our 2 larger cities of Arkansas City and Winfield that are in that 11,000 population. So they're very excited about supporting this, as well as a group of industries that are willing to help and partner with the student loan, the home loan, just the whole perspective of what it will take to make this program work. And with our Cali Works website that I mentioned earlier, we're currently building on that and adding community information. And this could be something, because we're really marketing outside of our area to bring in more people. And I think by being able to add that we're a Ros community will accentuate the benefits of living in Cali County and help bring more people to our areas, to our schools, to our businesses, and really hopefully change this trend that we're seeing of the declining population and just see that extension of some more business growth. So thank you very much for your time, and I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Carrie. And that is the last of our oral proponents. Just call your attention, there are quite a few written only. And we had Janet McCrae, Economic Development Director, Miami County, Michael Scanlon, City Manager of City of Osawatomie, Lucas Goff, County Administrator, Cali County, Randy Frazier, City Manager, Arc City, Taggett Wall, City Manager of Winfield, Mandy Maples, Manager of Human Resources at Newell Rubbermaid in Winfield, Christy Hopkins, Director of Greeley County Community Development and Tribune, and Tara Mays, Vice President, State Legislative Relations, Kansas Hospital Association. So we have no neutral and no opponents, so we'll have some time here for questions. And with our first hearing that was not planned at the time that we scheduled this, in case we run up over a few minutes, I hope that everyone will stick with us on this. So I'd like to open it up for any questions anyone has for anyone. Representative Bergkamp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple questions for David, if he doesn't mind. Hopefully you're the best person. Do you know how many people took the participant survey on the Ros program by chance?
So it was all the student loan participants. I don't have the report in front of me. It should be in the report itself that we sent. But if not, I'll double check and I'll get you a number. But it was only, so I just want to make sure I clarify, it's only the student loan participants. The reason being is because the income tax credit goes through your tax return. And so legally, we can't have access to those tax returns, so we don't have that information.
Okay, that makes sense, because a bulk of it looks like the student loan was utilized. So that being said, obviously looking at the survey, it sounds like there's very little effect for the student loan repayment having on people's decisions. So why do you think that we should keep that in the program if it's really not affecting people's decisions to move to a rural community?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of, We obviously believe that it's not necessarily driving decisions, although it may be helping financially over time, and that may improve other decisions that those young couples make, whether it be spending money elsewhere. So that definitely does probably still impact the local economy. I also know that stakeholders have said that they believe it does indeed impact decisions. So from that end, I think it was just a compromise to be able to leave it in there. I do think it does probably have a positive impact. It may not just be driving specifically their main decision, whether they're moving or not.
And Representative Burkamp, I might add to that. Probably a large reason on the student loan is that the county that I live in commits $15,000 a year for student loan repayment. However, they have to follow a student for 5 years on that loan repayment or follow the new resident. So that eats up their $15,000 each year for 5 years, and no one else can become eligible for the student loan repayment on that. Under this new program, the thing that I liked was it made it possible for foundations, for other individuals whoever could also make contributions to the county and open up more avenues. We have had 125 applicants, and we basically are in our 7th year, so we just were able to add someone else on a waiting list. So I think the new changes will make a key difference in that with more money available.
Thank you.
Representative Wassinger?
You said it right the first time. Thank you, Mr. Chair. David, my other question is, 2 years ago, the Lieutenant Governor and Secretary came to the Tax Committee and said he basically wanted to get rid of Ros. What has flipped this decision?
Yeah, so I don't know that I guess I have to remember to go back in time. I don't know that he fully said he wanted to fully get rid of Ros. I think what we had mentioned is, again, I think we had an inefficient incentive in that if we were going to continue with Ros, it had to be changed. I don't think we want to continue with Ros as is. And so I think what we went to do is we tried to get the stakeholders together, come up with a program. And then also, I probably should have mentioned this when Representative Burkamp had asked, there are folks that don't necessarily want to do either side of this, the student loan or the specific individual housing component, but they do want resources available to their community. So that's why we created that second part of Ros, which is building housing and committing state resources to do that, so we could address a need that they believe will indeed impact their communities long term. But I think getting back to your point, from our end, it was being able to create a more effective program, and that's why we have created some pretty dramatic changes, and that's what you're seeing today. And I think that's what our intended goal was, but we have said in the past that we do not necessarily want to just continue Ros as is, although for those communities that want it, we are saying that they should be able to keep it if they do believe it is effective, and there are communities that find that.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Land?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a question coming from Carrie's testimony where she requests for the county population cap to be increased to 40,000. I don't know if she wants to address this or maybe somebody else would, but I'm looking online, looking at the population of the counties, and like Cali County currently, at least what I'm looking at, the data has it just over 35,000. And there does seem to be a significant gap there at 39,000, between 39,000 and almost 55,000. So I wondered if somebody could address if we want to extend the cap from 35,000 to 40,000.
Mr. Sofer, you want to take that?
Sure. From the Department of Commerce's end, we have no objection to extending it to 40,000. Actually, to be honest with you, in our stakeholder meeting with respect to kind of how do we define a Ros County, I think we had 16 participants in that task force, and we got 16 different answers. So the answer really for us was to be a little bit more inclusive, and then kind of give you the presentation and allow communities to explain to you all kind of why it's important to them, and then allow you all to kind of make that decision. But from our end, we don't necessarily have an objection to extending it to 40,000.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else with a question? Representative
May I?
Toplicker?
Oh, this is Carrie Folletti. May I respond just briefly to the question from my testimony?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. From the July 2019 census, Cali County has fallen to 34,908. So we are now below that 35,000 threshold. And kind of for what we're wanting to do in this program and really utilize this to make the investment in a program development that we're wanting to do, we would hate to get in if the expansion is approved for 1 year and then be eliminated right after we're finally seeing some benefit from the program. So, and I think there are several counties that are right here on this cusp, which with our investment, we're actually undergoing a workforce study. Today and tomorrow, 40 businesses coming in to tell us about their struggles with workforce. So we're investing in our workforce strategies right now, and this would be a huge key to how we can start addressing it. We just want to make sure we've got more time to work on that. I would assume, total assumption now, that some other communities, especially if they opt for the 5-year program, if it's an annual review and you're in year 2 and you hit 35, you're out and you don't have any resources for the following. So that was our thoughts in that request for just consideration. Thank you.
Yes, and Representative Lynn, I think there were at least three, maybe 4 in the written that requested that 40,000. So that appears to be a number that's a favored anyway. And let's see, who was the, Representative Toplicker, you had a question?
Mr. Chairman, in the dissemination of the information about the program, was it talked about in getting the information to the schools, to the high schools, to the students, when students are trying to plan their careers and figure out where they're going to go to college or if they're going to go? Was this talked about in getting it into the high school programs for future planning of any sort?
Yes, David Sofer, Department of Commerce. The answer is yes. So, I mean, and this isn't just with Ros. This is in general. We are working on a strategy to, we're working on multiple different fronts, like with the Associated General Contractors and the program called Build Up Kansas. We want folks that are not necessarily interested in a 4-year degree, but are interested going into being a contractor, knowing about their opportunities to potentially earn money right after high school. So, with respect to your question, we are working on a strategy with not just Ros, just in generally to get to our high schools and working with the Department of Education and our Board of Regents to get younger individuals with the knowledge of what opportunities are available to them so that we can keep our talent here in Kansas. So with respect to Ros, we are indeed working to get that information to them at a much kind of younger age and being able that, when they do turn 17, 18, they are aware, and it's certainly an option to them so they know about it.
Any other questions? I've got a couple down as I read through it. And David, this one might be for you.
Getting my steps in.
Looking at the new option, and then we talk about some of the expansions for the old option of certificate programs and all. Do you think that this could drive a student in a county that chooses to go with the new option, the 5-step kind of approach, that students in those counties would hear about the Ros, but they wouldn't qualify for either, for the student loan forgiveness or the down payment? Would that drive them to a county that chose the old Ros method, and it might be counterproductive for the county that chose the five-step method?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think that's a fair question. From our end of things, it's why we want the community to have that option. We want them to be able to decide what they believe is best for their community. It is certainly possible. The challenge we're going to have is, unfortunately, there's just not unlimited resources for this program. So we've got to be able to understand that within the budget that we are provided, figuring out how we get those dollars to those communities and allow the communities really to decide whether they believe option one makes the most sense or option two. Obviously, keep in mind there are other programs available, both with respect to recruitment and also both with respect to building housing as well. So I think communities have to weigh those pros and cons, and ultimately we're allowing them to decide what they believe is in their best interest.
Since we're about at the time, one final question. Looking at the 77 counties that are currently in, and with the changes and the requirement for the skin in the game, which I do think is a good idea, would you expect some of those 77 counties that aren't utilizing the program to drop out?
Yeah, I think it's certainly possible. There's one county, I can't remember which one, that since Ros has been in existence, they have absolutely had no interest in the student loan, only cared about the income tax credit. And I don't even know how much that necessarily is a priority to them. So there probably are going to be some counties that just ultimately don't want to necessarily invest the resources and don't necessarily see the value in the program, and that's fine. I mean, the goal here is not necessarily to force this upon anyone. It's for those counties that see the value and are willing to commit, then the state should be happy to work with them and partner in that commitment. For those that don't, certainly we don't, there's no ill will, we're good with it. And, if they have other things that work for them, then certainly we're happy with that. And, and we've always told our communities, if you have other ideas, thoughts, much like we did here, and being able to survey results from them, bring them to us. If there's something we can implement on the state side that works for our local communities, I think we're happy to do that. We don't necessarily want to force these programs on any communities. We really want them to be able to tell us what they believe works, and then we were happy to work with them.
Okay, and I don't think it would be necessarily a negative if some counties made that decision, because that would free up more resources for the counties that do want to participate, particularly the income tax part for those coming into the county. So I've got a whole list of questions, but I won't go on it. But any other questions for any of our proponents? Okay, the only thing I'll end with is that I think I may have mentioned this on the last one, but I had another inquiry since we did our Ros hearing from the individual in my county that works for John Deere, one of the industries that Tricia mentioned, wanting to know how we were coming along on the Ros program, either on the extending the sunset or this new program. It's the reason he moved to Kansas out of college in Nebraska, and went to work as an engineer for Deere. And the reason that he is using to recruit friends of his that are graduating this spring to come to Montgomery County to go to work for Deere. And the Ros program is what brought him, and what he hopes will bring some of his fellow classmates. So to me, that was a testimony that the benefits, if you get it out, are enticing to some students to come to rural Kansas, and in our case, not live in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, which is about 35 miles away, in a much larger city, and perceived lower taxes on the Oklahoma side. So that's a plus. So appreciate the little couple extra minutes we have today and the ability to work in these two hearings. And our next meeting will be on Monday, and we will have a hearing on the trust bank bill, the new trust bank bill. And so with that, I wish everyone a safe St. Patrick's Day. Probably not too many out going wild tonight with the rain and potential snow and whatever else is going to come along. So thanks, and we are adjourned.